Hello, I'm Sue. Thank you for joining me for today's Bible reading for January 5th. Today I'll be reading Genesis 16 through 18 from the World English Bible. Now, this is our fifth video in this book. So we had January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And we began with the story of creation, the origins, God's relationship with the world and with people. And it concerned the fall, where man decided to rebel through his free choice, rebelled against God. But now we've begun to narrow in on this one particular man and his family, Abraham, and God's covenant with Abraham. And this is the beginning of God creating his chosen nation that he's going to bring the Messiah through. It's quite brilliant. It's the Bible says that this Messiah, this plan was made before the foundations of the world because God is going to make a way for man to come into relationship with him through free choice. God does not want a robot. He wants a relationship, right? So, so the more you understand the story, the more incredibly amazing it is, God's great brilliance and intelligence. But so here in Genesis, we see the developing of this nation with Abraham, who God promised he would have children, even though he was old and didn't have any yet. Then we see Abraham has Isaac, who later has Jacob, whose name becomes Israel, who has 12 sons who are the 12 tribes of Israel. God promises them the land, gives them their sections of the land as an inheritance. And so Genesis tells the story of this great nation that's developing all the way to the end. And then when we open up in the next book, the book of Exodus, we have the birth of Moses, who's going to become their deliverer out of slavery in Egypt. Because even though when they went down to Egypt, it was a good thing, they've become slaves there and an oppressed people. And God sends a deliverer to get them out of there. And then we continue with their whole the whole rest of their history, which is even it's just more and varied and amazing, and it takes us into the other histories. Well, the rest of these books of the Bible, the first 5 books called the Pentateuch, and then into the histories in the beginning part of the books. Well, in the beginning books of the Bible, the way we have it bound together, stories like King David and Samson and many more. um, so we're starting a really fascinating set of narratives and history here. And I am going to post 2 links in the description, which are from the Bible Project YouTube channel and their website, that gives an overview of Genesis. If that helps anyone's interested, and that helps you with that. It's actually in 2 parts because it's such a long book. So with that, let me get started here. Genesis 16 through 18 from the World English Bible, verse 1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children. She had a servant, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Sarai said to Abram, "See now, Yahweh has restrained me from bearing. Please go into my servant. It may be that I will obtain children by her." Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her servant, after Abraham had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to be his wife. He went in to Hagar, and she conceived. When she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Sarai said to Abram, "This wrong is your fault. I gave my servant into your bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, she despised me. May Yahweh judge between me and you." But Abram said to Sarai, "Behold, your maid is in your hand. Do to her whatever is good in your eyes." Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her face. Yahweh's angel found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain on the way to Shur. He said, "Hagar, Sarai's servant, where did you come from? Where are you going?" She said, "I'm fleeing from the face of my mistress Sarai." Yahweh's angel said to her, "Return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hands." Yahweh's angel said to her, "I will greatly multiply your offspring, that they will not be counted for multitude." Yahweh's angel said to her, "Behold, you are with child and will bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. He will be like a wild donkey among men. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. He will live opposed to all his brothers." She called the name of Yahweh who spoke to her, "You are a God who sees." For she said, "Have I even stayed alive after seeing him?" Therefore the well was called Beer Lahai Roi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. Hagar bore a son for Abram. Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. When Abram was 99 years old, Yahweh appeared to Abram and said to him, "I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless. I will make my covenant between me and you, and will multiply you exceedingly. Abram fell on his face. God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you. You will be the father of a multitude of nations. Your name will no more be called Abram, but your name will be Abraham. For I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you. Kings will come out of you. I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God to you and to your offspring after you. I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land where you are traveling, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. I will be their God. God said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin. It will be a token of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every male throughout your generations. He who is born in the house or bought with money from any foreigner who is not of your offspring. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money must be circumcised. My covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. The uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. God said to Abram, As for Sarai your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but her name shall be Sarah. I will bless her, and moreover I will give you a son by her. Yes, I will bless her, and she will be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Will a child be born to him who is 100 years old? Will Sarah, who is 90 years old, give birth? Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. God said, No, but Sarah, your wife, will bear you a son. You shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and will multiply him exceedingly. He will become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this time next year. At this set time next year. When he finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Abraham took Ishmael his son, all who were born in his house, and all who were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the same day, as God had said to him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That's an act of faith right there. He had to, he knew that he knew what God had said to him. I mean, think about that. That was a dramatic thing to do just based on hearing the voice of God. Verse 25, Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the same day, both Abraham and Ishmael, his son, were circumcised. All the men of his house, those born in the house and those bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. Yahweh appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre as he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked and saw that 3 men stood near him. When he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself to the earth and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in your sight, please don't go away from your servant. Let a little water be fetched, wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. I will get a piece of bread so you can refresh your heart. After that you may go your way, now that you have come to your servant. They said, Very well, do as you have said. Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, Quickly, prepare 3 seahs of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes. Abraham ran to the herd and fetched a tender and good calf, and gave it to the servant. He hurried to dress it. He took butter, milk, and the calf, which he had dressed, set it before them. He stood by them under the tree, and they ate. They asked him, Where is Sarah, your wife? He said, There in the tent. He said, I will certainly return to you about this time next year, and behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Sarah heard in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age. Sarah had passed the age of childbearing. Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old, will I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? Yahweh said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Will I really bear a child when I am old? Is anything too hard for Yahweh? At the set time I will return to you when the season comes around, and Sarah will have a son. Then Sarah denied it, saying, I didn't laugh, for she was afraid. He said, No, but you did laugh. These men rose up from there and looked toward Sodom. Abraham went with them to see them on their way. Yahweh said, will I hide from Abraham what I do? Since Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed in him. For I have known him to the end that he may command his children and his household after him, that they may keep the way of Yahweh, to do righteousness and justice, to the end that Yahweh may bring on Abraham that which he has spoken of him. Yahweh said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether their deeds are as bad as the reports which have come to me. If not, I will know. The men turned from there and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood yet before Yahweh. Abraham came near and said, will you consume the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous within the city? Will you consume and not spare the place for 50 righteous who are in it? May it be far from you to do things like that, to kill the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be like the wicked. May that be far from you. Shouldn't the judge of all the earth do right? Yahweh said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare the whole place for their sake. Abraham answered, see now, I have taken it on myself to speak to the Lord, although I am dust and ashes. What if there will lack 5 of the 50 righteous? Will you destroy all the city for lack of 5? He said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. He said to him yet again and said, what if there are 40 found there? He said, I will not do it for the 40's sake. He said, oh, don't let the Lord be angry, and I will speak. What if there are 30 found there? He said, I will not do it if I find 30 there. He said, see now, I have taken it on myself to speak to the Lord. What if there are 20 found there? He said, I will not destroy it for the 20's sake. He said, oh, don't let the Lord be angry, and I will speak just once more. What if there are 10 found there? He said, I will not destroy it for the 10's sake. Yahweh went his way as soon as he had finished communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. That's it. That's it for today. It leaves us hanging. Makes you want to go on and read the rest of the story there. So one thought came to my mind when I was reading that, and I've always wondered about this part when Sarah laughed, and he said, why did Sarah laugh? And she said, I didn't laugh. So she must know that they didn't hear her laugh. It said she laughed within herself. So Yahweh, or the ones that were with him, I don't remember which one said it, probably Yahweh, said, why did Sarah laugh? I think that one of the reasons for that was just to give a confirmation to them that, it is God, and God sees, he sees our thoughts, not just hears our words, but knows the deepest, most intimate parts about us. To call her to account, yes, but it would work in a way of reassuring her eventually, because she's like, wow, that really was God. He really knows. He knows he knows I'm wicked. She even lied, and yet he's going to bring about his purpose in spite of me, in spite of my weakness. So that would be a faith builder ultimately. I hope you see what I mean by that. It's amazing how God deals with us in such an intimate and personal level. I love it. Okay, well, thanks for joining me for today. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you.